And I want to talk a little bit more about creating leads. I have questions for each of you. Chris, I'd love to start with you. In the video, you talk about giving away your secrets because what goes around comes around, and you've really seen that at Vertech. Can you talk about a specific content project where you've learned from that and what Vertech has kind of done to create that initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are firm believers in that. It's not dangerous to give away your secret sauce. It's going to be okay. So one example, at the 2018 ICC conference, we wrapped up all of our marketing pieces and all of our how we do MES projects into one talk. And so it was a presentation that went through the life cycle of an MES project, how we run it, the spreadsheets that we use, the forms that we use, our UX design, our actual screens, everything that we do within a project. And we told everybody, and that was end users and integrators alike. They're all in the room. And then we said, we're not even going to show you. We will give you all of these forms, and we will give you all of these spreadsheets that you too could use it however you please. And so we posted that up on our website, gave a special URL, and had tons of downloads from both integrators and end users, which turn into leads, which turn into people that are interested in your services. Because it doesn't just end at how do you do an MES project, it's will you do an MES project for us?
Awesome. You did get a shout out in the questions bar from JC Harrison, who's friend of IA. Agree with Chris, give it away. That's awesome.
That's my brother.
Jeff, we'll move on to you. In your video, your colleagues at Grantek talk about the importance on following up with leads. Can you go into a little bit more detail about determining the best way to follow up on a lead?
Sure. So I think it goes without saying that following up on leads in a timely manner is imperative for success. I shouldn't need to convince you to follow up with leads. The question more comes, how do I follow up with leads? How do I provide value faster to our customers and build better rapport quicker? And this is important because not all leads are created equal. And if you apply a one-size-fits-all model, you may be missing the boat on a lot of this. So we happen to follow and implement the buying journey, the customer's buying journey, which Doug talked about earlier. Well, we like the HubSpot model for this, which breaks the buying journey into 3 phases. It's awareness, consideration, and decision. And depending on where a customer is within that journey, changes what they're looking for, and therefore changes how we manage and handle that particular lead. So for example, if a customer is in the awareness stage, they don't know if they have a problem yet, or if they do, they're trying to understand it, which means they're in an information quest. They're out there looking for educational videos and trends and benchmarks and checklists and ways to evaluate themselves. And so for people in this stage, they generally don't want to actually talk with a salesperson. They're just trying to gather information. And so we try and respond to that by being a resource to them. Now, if they're in the consideration phase, that means they know they have a problem. Now they're searching for a solution to that problem. And in this stage, they're looking for how-to guides and white papers and case studies and solution comparisons and road mapping decisions. And our research has found that about 60% of the time, people actually want to talk to a salesperson in this stage because they need help. And so we push for that in this particular stage. Now, if they're in the decision stage, that's the least desirable because they already know they have a problem. They already think they know how to solve it. Now they're just looking for the right person to choose for it. So here we shift to talking about our company. What's our value? We talk about our people, our skills, our expertise. We provide testimonials, and we talk about what it's like to work with our company because that's what they're looking for in this stage. So as you can see, depending on what stage they're in, changes what they're looking for and how we respond to that lead. And the faster we can identify which stage they're in, the more effective our marketing and sales teams can be in responding to that lead.
That's awesome. Well, Jeff, you kind of perfectly set up my question for Doug. talking about that buyer's journey, and you mentioned this in the video too, drawing a map out, kind of what Jeff was saying as well, to encourage people down a path, to a buying path. Can you talk about writing a good call to action or some kind of piece of compelling content that is going to really seal the deal for that sale?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a great segue into that. It's really about those calls to action and what those call to actions mean to that prospect, that specific part of their buyer's journey that really makes up that map. And so when you're thinking about your marketing, you really want to be thinking about what stage people are at and what you want them to be doing next to keep moving forward from being that prospect to being a lead that you can potentially have your sales team follow up on. So I actually had a few tips that I wanted to share with the group here about how to write a really good call to action, because call to actions are really important to help draw that map for your prospects. So one of those, the CTAs are super important because they do help give that next step. And before I go into the tips, I just want to give a little bit of an example to kind of show people what this map is I'm talking about. So let's say somebody's interested, comes to one of our webinars. That person is now in phase one. They are aware of who we are and that we have something to offer them, right? Now they followed a call to action to get to that webinar because we created that content and set up a form for them to sign up to come to the webinar. Everyone that's here at this webinar today took that call to action to join the webinar, right? So very, very relevant example. So let's say in that webinar, we then have a call to action at some point in the webinar to come to our website to learn more. If that person then takes upon that call to action to do that, they are then part of phase two, consideration. They're now considering what we have to offer and looking to see if it matches up with their needs. So let's say the person comes to our website, now they're there, and on the website they encounter a call to action to do a product demo of Ignition with a member of our sales team. And they fill out the form and then they set up a demo. They have now taken that call to action and they're entered into that third phase for decision, where they're deciding between our product, competitor's product, and their own needs to see if we have a fit there. So as you can see, there was a call to action at every step along the way to move that person into a deeper level of commitment further down that buying cycle to get them to be someone who the sales team can actually follow up on. That's how CTAs can form this map that I'm talking about. So to those tips for writing good CTA. Tip number one, you want to reduce risk. So part of a good CTA is to make your audience feel comfortable enough to take action, which can be accomplished by including statements that reduce their risk. Saying things like free download, get a 5-minute demo are some examples. You want to give that prospect an expectation of what they're committing to and the level of that commitment. Another way to reduce risk in your CTA is to include what we call social proof. And social proof is just proof that people like them, like your audience, have used your product or service and have had success with it, that it can be one that's trusted. So examples of social proof would be like customer testimonials, a positive review, or even logos from companies that have used your product. So let me show you just an example here from our own website. This is just a screenshot of the bottom of one of our product pages. If you go on our website, you'll see this. We have a call to action on those product pages to download Ignition. And what you can see here is we're starting to use some of that language to reduce risk. So we talk about install in 3 minutes. So we're giving them a very clear idea. It only takes a little bit of time, right? That we're making the commitment clear. And then we're pairing that with some logos from companies that have used Ignition. So that's that social proof element, right? These companies have used Ignition, trust Ignition. So those are a couple of ways that we're reducing risk with that call to action, and all that's to help people feel comfortable with taking that action. This is something they can do and get some value out of and trust. So another tip for a good call to action is to make your action clear. It's vital to be clear with your CTA what you want your prospect to do next. A good CTA makes it clear to your prospect what action they should take and what the results of the action should be. An example of how to do this, a couple examples is click here to learn more. In this example, click here is the action and learn more is the result, right? Very simple, but they know exactly what they need to do and they have an idea what they're going to get from that action. So a third tip is create urgency. When possible, it's best to encourage a response at a given time frame. Doing this can counteract the sense of complacency that can be the enemy of taking action, right? So you want people to take action. So a couple examples of how to create some urgencies with your call to action, like download today, click now to get your free white paper, right? You're just trying to give them some subtle hints that this is an action they should take now. So one caution here is you don't want to put too much urgency on a call to action for someone who's too early in the buying process, because it could scare them away, right? So just use that with caution, but it does help people feel like they should take action more immediately. And then my fourth tip is make the action relevant. This is probably the most important tip, and this is directly correlating to what Jeff was talking about in his answer earlier, where it really is all about understanding where your prospect is in the buying purchase, right? So you could have the best, most amazing call to action in the world, but if you're asking your audience to take an action that's not relevant to them and to their needs, they probably won't do it, right? So you could write a, let's say your audience is people that really program PLCs and that's the main thing they're interested in with your product. You could write a white paper all about dog walking, and they're probably not going to download it, right? Unless they really love dogs or they just had a really bad dog walk that day and figure, you know what, I need to get some tips. But if you write a white paper about, 3 common mistakes for when you're downloading a PLC or 10 tips from a pro, they're probably much more likely to download that piece of content than the dog walking piece, right? So it's important that your call to action be relevant to your target audience's needs. So if you tried all these tips and you can't seem to find those magic words to get your prospect to take action, you might be asking them the wrong thing. Look again at what's relevant to your audience and how you can help them solve their problems, and that's going to give you a better call to action by having them take an action that's actually relevant to them. So anyway, those are 4 tips. Hopefully those are useful to help create that map and use call to actions to get your prospects to take action.